Welcome back. Well, Russia's Vladimir Putin says he hopes for a diplomatic solution with the West as he announced a partial pullback of troops from Ukraine. Comments came during discussions with Germany's Olaf Scholz. But can we count on a troop drawdown? With more, let's bring in our next guest, Ed Mills, Raymond James, Washington policy analyst. Ed, thanks so much for being here. So the headlines on the surface slightly better than 24 hours ago, but still so much uncertainty. And NATO saying they will believe it when they see it. And if an invasion comes, it could come very quickly, similar to how it did, when Crimea was invaded. What is your assessment, and what chances do you think that there is for escalation?
Karina, my general assessment is that we're going to be on at least a very high simmer for a foreseeable future. Putin has a lot of incentive to continue the pressure, but also to drag this out. You look at energy prices that are dollar denominated as he pursues this, as long as he still has customers, that's a benefit to the Russian economy, especially with a lower ruble. He sees political divisions here in the United States. He sees a European Union that has new leadership. And as you mentioned, within Germany, with the new kind of leader Scholz, you see a prime minister in Britain who's been weakened by scandal. So the longer he plays this out, the higher that simmer is, probably helps out President Putin. And I think that is the base case that the market has to expect at this time.
Let's talk about some of the sanctions. The U.S. says that it will act promptly and swiftly and harshly against Russia. So what are the sanctions that they could impose? And then what does that mean for our economy, as well as what it does for Russia, as far as our energy and our economy and that of Europe as well?
So we have a lot of adjectives to describe these sanctions. What we don't have are specifics. One of the issues with these sanctions is that for them to be effective, we have to work with our European allies to make sure that they get applied appropriately. But there is a disproportionate impact on the European economies versus the United States economy. One area where we could have an impact on the United States economy, Karina, is on oil prices. That is one of the key components of inflation metrics, and that's a key component on consumer confidence. So anything that continues this upward push on commodities, especially oil, natural gas, that could put political pressure on President Biden and harm kind of the political sentiment for congressional Democrats as we head into the midterm.
And then I want to talk about what market implications it has here. The Fed has been talking about moving more aggressively to tighten at this point. Do you think that this throws a wrench into that plan at all?
From a market perspective, we published a note earlier today here at Raymond James that we highlighted what we saw in terms of a reaction on Friday, which is certainly a risk-off environment. There can be a flight to safety, a flight away from technology, certainly a bid in energy, as we discussed previously. From a Federal Reserve perspective, it could flatten the yield curve, which could put some pressure on them to not be as aggressive as they'd want to be on some of the Fed funds hikes. But I do think that probably the underappreciated aspect of this is you go back to Powell's reconfirmation hearing before the Senate Banking Committee, and he talked a lot about the use of the balance sheet and kind of runoff, ability to have some level of curve control and other tools at his disposal beyond just raising rates. So I think that the Fed is going to be steady as it goes, but use other tools to achieve their desire to lower inflation, but keep the economy moving ahead.
And then, Ed, Putin said today to Scholz that energy cooperation is paramount to him. It's something that's very important. And I'm wondering, if sanctions are imposed, how likely is Russia to cut off Europe from energy supplies? Because Europe is so dependent on their energy. And, will Europe stay away from imports?
Yeah, so there is a interdependency here. As much as Germany and the rest of Europe are reliant on Russia's natural gas and oil, the Russian economy is very much reliant upon those payments. So I think right now the market expectation is that it's in Putin's best interest trying to keep as many of those sales going to boost the domestic economy within Russia. I don't see a scenario where Putin tries to hold off some of those sales because it is just too important to him economically, unless he's made the decision to invade. And that's where we look to some of the conversations that have occurred between Russia and China, seeing what agreements have been made there. Those are the wild card factors in this discussion.
And really quickly, how do you hedge against inflation and geopolitical risks at the same time? Because one involves cutting back on treasuries, one involves buying more treasuries.
So I think you have to kind of separate the noise, kind of identify high quality investments, things that probably have a decent yield, and stay the course. Don't let some of these headlines out of DC fundamentally alter your decision making on a day-to-day basis. Let it inform some of the longer term investment goals that you have.
Okay, thank you so much, Ed Mills, Raymond James, Washington policy analyst. Thanks for your perspective.